We are recording. Have to hold the minutes till the next meeting. So if you want to dive in right away, we can keep going.
You want me to?
Sure, go ahead.
Jim,
What?
we don't have what is probably called a quorum, right?
No.
Does that matter?
We'll get we're not voting on anything. I can't do the minutes because we haven't got a quorum.
Okay.
And so we'll hold the minutes till next time, and then we'll just add it. We did that during the summer tour. We couldn't get a quorum.
Good enough.
I did not send out anything to everybody because I had a little glitch with my computer.
My recollection is, I missed the last meeting, is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, that was just an oversight on my part.
I wanted to, everybody agreed that 5:30 was gonna be the time we were gonna start it.
I remember you saying that.
How many do you need for a quorum? Does he get one more coming in?
There you go.
Good.
He's great.
Huh?
Don't worry about it.
Let's see, for you, I need 4 to make a quorum. That's 7 of us now.
So we have a quorum now?
Yeah,
Huh?
yeah, we'll hit shot. We need 4. So, but we can go ahead and catch them up and then we'll go from there.
Maybe we should make Isabel here a member of the committee.
All right, want me to dive in, Jim?
Go ahead, dive in and we'll get going and
So on Gail's update, not a whole lot since last time on the runway project. So Blue Sky, the aerial surveyor, has flown the airport and collected all of the necessary information for that 18B survey. So they're currently working through processing that data, and we'll have to get an update from them on, what the timeline for submitting everything will be. But they've already got all the information they need, so that's moving along nicely. You'll see copies of a draft stormwater pollution prevention plan for the airport sitting on the corner of the table here. I'm not going to go over that during the meeting tonight. I think it would just be too cumbersome to cover in one night, but I wanted to provide everyone with a copy to hopefully go over, over the next few weeks. You're welcome to call me or email me anytime with questions you have. Otherwise, I'll plan at the next meeting to answer any questions that anyone has before moving forward with, submitting the notice of intent, which is the basically permit application for this plan and getting that all uploaded to the EPA.
And that needs to be done by March, Jim said?
no, I think, when's the stormwater stuff has to be in by as soon as we can.
I would say let's plan to do it as soon as possible. I don't know that I have a specific date that I was given by
No,
anyone.
I think it was the CIP or the AIP.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's going to be a different project that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Okay.
I have some stupid questions. What is it here at the airport that could lead to water pollution or pollution of the surrounding environment, other than maybe the gas tank floating, across the runway or
Well,
something?
spilling fuel, stuff like that.
So there are all sort of industrial activities that are listed out. So you could have aircraft washing, aircraft taxiing, maintenance of snow removal equipment, all sorts of things. Obviously, fueling is one of those things. Aircraft painting, aircraft maintenance activities, and there is a line, or there is a page in there, David, that outlines all of those different industrial activities that you have to, basically the reason for having the SWIP in place. And every industrial, facility that receives, federal money does have to have one of these, so that's, all part of your runway reconstruction project and, getting that up to date.
And the city of Gardner has one for the DPW because of all their activities and
And-
trucks and.
Yep, and I did take a look at that, Isabel, so thank you for passing that along. I think, unfortunately, the DPW, version of the SWIP for the overall city SWIP does not include anything about Sector S, which is specifically for air transportation. So there's some of the monitoring requirements that you'll see in this SWIP for the airport that are not included in the city. So there's a special monitoring called indicator monitoring, which is basically, you have to take samples periodically, and that's all outlined in the document, and send them off to a lab to be tested. So there's instructions for that in the SWIP. And then there are also impaired waters that are in the area, so there's specific monitoring that's associated with that has to be completed as well.
Did you say impaired?
Impaired waters, yep, and that's all, again, it's all outlined in the document, but
Okay.
in the interest of time, I figured let everybody have some time with it and then, answer any questions that anyone may have.
Won't have any trouble sleeping.
Yeah, I know. Fortunately, I will say fortunately, the majority of the thickness of that document are the supporting attachments. So the actual text to read is probably maybe, I don't know, a quarter to a third of that package.
Well, what got me was when I read the SWIFT started off on the first page or introduction and scope and stuff like that, and it said for the city, it says, within city property, city limits, plus any property that the city owns, not on the airport. Because my question was, do we have to go through Templeton, or is it Templeton SWIFT that we need, not just Gardner? And, but because it's property Gardner owns, and I'm sure there's some addendums that go with the landfill and the sewage treatment plant, that are all down the street. So, very good.
So again, I think everybody has a copy of my business card, but I can give them to you tonight as well. If you have any questions throughout the month, just feel free to reach out at any point. But other than that, if everyone would just be prepared to provide those comments at the December meeting, I would be more than happy to take them. Any questions about the runway project before I move on into the master plan? All right, hearing none. So,
Is the runway project complete?
the runway project,
Yeah, it's complete for all intents and purposes, with the exception of in the springtime, making sure that the grass that was recently seeded back in the fall has grown. There's a few other areas along the lips of the runway that need to have some additional topsoil put down. But yeah, the runway itself is completed.
Yeah, the electrician dropped off a bunch of boxes into the vault. I think
Oh,
those
yeah.
are our extra parts.
Oh, okay. I'll check with Andrew on that.
I don't know, but I think,
Good.
okay.
Any improvement in the condition of that grass between the
Yes,
runway
we actually have some growing.
Some growing.
out there?
Well, it's been unseasonably warm too for the last few weeks, which is really good. So.
Yeah, and when he came to get his check, he walked out there and I said, see all these weeds? He said, that's the spec for the seed mix. And the weeds are supposed to keep the
Nothing wrong with weeds.
the
They're really-
dirt in place. I'm like,
Absolutely,
okay.
But they died
okay.
when they go down below 50.
Yeah, so anyway, he said that's the spec that we're supposed to use. I'm like, okay.
As long as it's growing, I'd say
Yeah.
you're on
We'll just buy air filters.
Yeah.
What's the company that's coming in to do testing?
Right, so that was part of my thing. So they're coming on the 10th, Sunday the 10th, and they are a subcontractor of Mass DOT. And we were a little surprised because we weren't sure what they were doing, but where is it? Pavement,
Oh, for the pavement condition
Pavement
study?
Condition
site
study.
visit inspection.
I never heard of it, and that
And,
was surprised me.
I said, what exactly are you, what data are you collecting? And it's just different.
It's a good thing. If you go onto Mass DOT's website, they have their pavement condition index reporting.
You're right.
You can click on any of the airports, you can zoom in on Gardner, you can click on each pavement section. It'll tell you the year that the pavement was constructed, what condition it's in, and you can go to out years and it'll give you a projection of what the condition of the pavement will be, 5 years from now, 6 years from now. It helps them plan for capital improvement projects when they're gonna come back out and do something like reconstruct your apron or do crack filling, stuff like that, so it is helpful.
It seems like it's really redundant for the testing, part of it, I don't know, but maybe not.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, they're coming, on the 10th.
That's a Sunday, they're gonna be here most of the day, I guess.
Yep, I told them I'd meet them.
It's odd that they're coming on Sunday, but
Yep.
what do I know?
All right, so moving into the master plan project, I know we were working on the status of your hazard beacons. Gail did meet with FAA and Commissioner Swartz on the 11th of October. And so it was determined by FAA that the beacons are considered to be hazards and that they should come down.
I was not aware.
Which I find very humorous.
At this time, I know FAA is saying that the beacons are not eligible for AIP funding. So just, I guess, be aware of that, planning, moving forward, that they are not AIP eligible. We'll discuss that a little bit more as we get into depth, talking about scheduled improvements for the master plan and maybe, potential assistance for something like that. Commissioner Swartz also inquired about the potential to, once the beacons have come down, dissolve those easements and give the property back to the property owners, basically as an act of good faith. FAA was not sure about the grant obligations because those easements were acquired with FAA funding, so there may be some grant obligations tied to those. They're doing a little bit of research to see if there would be any issues with dissolving those easements or any sort of implications associated with that, so that's still outstanding right now, but making some progress and at least getting some answers. I know you've all been waiting on answers on that for quite some time now.
And is there a scope of how much stuff has to be removed? Do we have to do the electrical and
We don't have any of those details just yet.
Okay.
But my understanding is the beacons would have to they would have to come down. We just don't know.
How about the wiring going to?
Why are you going to them?
I don't know at this point in
Yeah.
time, guys.
Yeah.
You're asking questions that we haven't been given answers
That's what I was
to, so.
saying.
Yeah.
Because it's, some of them probably have 5 or 6 poles and wire
Yeah.
that go through
Yeah.
the property
Yeah.
and the right of way, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, what was the other question? We're gonna have to go up and stick tree branches on the poles and say they're trees and take them down with that.
When you do an obstruction clearing project?
Yeah,
Yeah.
tree clearing,
Yeah.
topping,
Yeah.
You're thinking outside the box now.
well, always gotta,
And we took
Okay.
that easement, so airports can take easements on private property by eminent domain.
Correct.
So is that what we did? We took it and said, we're using this part of your land?
I don't know if it was
I'm not
by,
sure.
I'm not sure it was done by eminent domain or not. You may have paid them
I think
some
it
sort
was
of like
probably
fee,
some-
but like an easement rights for the airport, and they may have been paid some money for consideration, but I'm not sure if it was,
Yeah, it was.
I don't recall it being eminent domain.
The easements, those easements are pretty old. They date back to 1962.
Right.
So, so some, as far as, I don't have a copy of the Exhibit A in
I haven't
front
found
of me.
anything yet, but I'm digging through, Kenny had a bunch of stuff and I'm digging through it now, but I haven't seen anything.
Okay. So I guess stay tuned on more
More to come.
answers, yep, on those. Moving on, so I know at the meeting in September, we went over the Chapter 6 alternatives and talked about some different projects, and the commission subsequently allowed Gale Associates to forward that chapter to FAA and Mass DOT for review. So they did provide comments back to us. Wasn't quite in time to pull everything together for the October meeting, but we were able to pull things together for this meeting. So you'll see you have a copy of a revised Chapter 6 in front of you here. It's all redlined with all the changes, the revisions that were made, and then you'll actually see at the back of the document is a comment revision matrix. So you've all been provided with a copy of every comment that was made by FAA or Mass DOT and how Gale has responded to each of those items. So I guess, in the interest of time, I can, I don't want to go through the changes line by line, but I can just kind of highlight, I guess, some of the more major areas that have changed. A lot of the items that FAA was requesting simply for clarification purposes. One of the major items that they had commented on was when we were talking about AIP discretionary funding eligibility. They did not want to commit to saying a project would be eligible for discretionary funding based on various parameters for the project and needing to provide justification at the time of the project. They really want, current justification anytime we pursue or anytime the airport pursues a project. So anyway, you'll notice throughout the document that anywhere it states that it's eligible for AIP discretionary funding, we've just removed discretionary and left it as AIP funding. Let's see, we did on page 6-2, we just gave a little bit of description of the building height restrictions and how we arrived at where the airport's building restriction line should fall. That is a requirement on the airport layout plan that you have a building restriction line in place, and we have determined that it would probably be appropriate at Gardner. They're typically between 25 feet and 35 feet, and just due to the typical heights of structures on the airport and zoning regulations in the airport zone within the town of Templeton, that it would be appropriate for the airport to have a 25-foot building restriction line rather than that 35-foot line. So let's see. I guess I'll just kind of call your attention maybe to the figures and where the changes were made there. So if you go to past page 6-4 to apron alternative number 2, it was figure 612. I know this was not the selected alternative, so it's a little bit of a moot point, I think, right now, but Mass DOT had suggested just showing this option rather than having, the tie-down spots closest to the taxiway and the taxi lane on the other side to flip-flop those. So we've done that. It just shows, you get 9 tie-down spaces out of it instead of it was 7 before. Really, this alternative does not meet the tie-down demand that we had talked about in previous chapters, and the commission had already selected the other alternative, so I don't think that there would be a reason to move away from the alternative that you picked at that point. Let's see. Moving on to the hangar alternatives in the table 6-6. FAA just wanted some clarification about the breakdown of funding and the local share versus what FAA would contribute and whatnot. So we provided a breakdown of that. I think we had discussed that verbally, but what they want to see that on paper, so I added that in there. And then I know that the commission had selected alternative number 1. There were some changes to alternative number 1. So you'll see hangar alternative 1, figure 621. what's gone on with this alternative is FAA and Mass DOT both had suggested that nothing be proposed inside of the wetland or wetland buffer area, so we've taken and reduced this to just show one building. You'll see there, and it's still, you know, the 6-unit nested T-hanger building. There was also a suggestion to separate the two buildings because of fire suppression requirements. If the buildings were too close together, there might be added restrictions there. And then the other thing that's been added is just showing those operational surface areas, just to show FAA and Mass DOT that, hey, this is outside of your, you know, taxiway object-free area, it's outside of your primary surface, it's outside of your runway safety area, just to show those safety critical areas on the plan. Again, it seems like, you know, selecting alternative 1 would still make sense for the commission. I don't know that there's any reason to deviate from that. There is, you know, like I said, a difference with the anticipated, you know, space that you achieve for hangars there, but I think it still makes sense. So, unless anyone has any oppositions or questions, I can move on. Moving on to page 6-7. Let's see. Mass DOT wanted some additional just explanation over what the situation with the leasehold property and when the lease is up and whatnot. So we just provided that added detail there. You'll see some minor changes on 6-8. And then I don't think that there's a reason to really deviate from the selected alternative of alternative 1. We did shift the building, you'll see on the figure on the next page, 6.3, shifted the building over slightly at the recommendation of Mass DOT, you know, to basically create a larger parking area for the snow removal equipment vehicles in front of that building on the air side. And so we just shifted that over and made sure that you're outside of that building restriction line, and the walkways shifted slightly, but it's really not a significant change, and just, you know, having a little bit of a different location for that building, but it's effectively the same, you know, maybe a little bit more pavement, so it's slightly more impervious surface area, but it's nothing significant in comparison to what we had seen before. Moving on. The fencing alternatives, we're on 6-9, page 6-9 now. The biggest thing here, and you know, really the only thing, is FAA and Mass DOT had recommended avoiding wetland impacts and wetland buffer impacts to the maximum extent possible. So you'll see that, you know, I know previously we had the fence line going as far away from the hangar areas as possible to maximize that area of space, but you know, the agencies really wanted to see avoidance of those wetland impacts, so that's what we've done here. And of course, we're, you know, avoiding as much as possible. You know, we have to stay outside of any of the operational surfaces, so there would be some wetland impacts associated, but fewer with this alternative than with the original that was presented. And this is still an option for the full perimeter fencing. The other thing we've done is, I know there's a little bit of a dirt access road that runs along behind the hangar, so we've made sure that we're avoiding that, so it wouldn't impact that whole dirt road there.
Good.
Okay, keeping things moving, 6-11, I know you had elected not to pursue non-aviation use on the airport, but Mass DOT and FAA had requested at least a cursory look at potential access points to the area. So that's really the only difference that you see here on the plan, which is figure 6.5. We just identified where you have Hill Factory Road and then the airport access road, the dirt road there. And then we also added some contour lines just to show, you know, terrain differences and some challenges that might be associated with accessing those areas. So again, I don't know that there's really, it's more just for informational purposes, I think, for the agencies and, you know, for all of you to have these things documented for the future. But I don't know that, you know, based on our conversations at the September meeting, that there would be a reason to deviate from what you've selected based on these changes that have been made. Any questions?
So the blue is the property line?
The blue, so the blue is the proposed area, non-aviation use area, but you selected not to go with this alternative, so it's a moot alternative
Right.
anyway.
I just did that, but that's the property line?
Yep,
All of it?
that's.
Because it goes farther west than I thought.
Sure, right, so the blue area is only showing the area that was proposed for non-aviation use. So
Right.
airport property line, you'll see the boundary is the dashed line, and it goes far beyond, you know, the limits of the blue area. But the blue area would just be what we had proposed for non-aviation, so that I realized that, you know, the airport property is much bigger than just the blue boundary.
Exactly, that was, and the elevations are, it's 100 or 70, 60, 50, 60, 70 feet, basically. Wow. Okay.
It's significant hill going up there. Yeah.
We didn't use that.
Moving on to the PAPI construction alternatives. Really just providing a little bit more background information on these as far as, you know, making sure that the airport understands that any maintenance costs associated with the PAPIs would have to be, you know, paid by the airport. So that was one detail that FAA wanted to make sure that the commission was aware of. The other change, and it's the same for both plans, if you just look at an example on PAPI Alternative 1, figure 6.6, the suggestion was to move the PAPIs closer to the access road and also add in where the power control unit will go. So really not, you know, not much of a change other than adding in that power control unit and shifting those PAPIs slightly. They also asked us to review the project costs for these alternatives, and so previously the estimate was at $225,000. We did, you know, we did a review and, you know, just wanted to make sure that that was, you know, up to date, and so it really shouldn't be, you know, there really wasn't much of a change there, but.
Why are they shown in the middle of the, they should be opposite the end of the runway. Why are they way in like that?
I'm sorry?
Why is it way in here? It should be out here, shouldn't it?
No. They do it so that because the touchdown zone technically is, on a bigger airport, it's 1,000 feet, but I don't know what it is here. I would say probably
They
500.
put it in
So
at the touchdown zone?
So what I would say as far as this, I believe we based this off of a similar project that was done at similar size airport in the past. However, I will say that when you're talking about reconstruction of a PAPI, the design is completely done by the FAA. So it's
Right.
determined and done by the FAA. You don't need to necessarily design
Because
the PAPI location right now. It's just.
What we're looking for is,
They moved this
Grassy
PAPI
area.
2,000 feet to the north in the one drawing to the next. It's both.
one faces one direction.
Yeah, you got two of them, there are two separate.
One
Different
on each
directions,
side.
one's for 1.8, one's for 3.6.
Oh, really? So we have two PAPIs, one from either direction, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I just thought they were closer to the ends.
But they have to be down the runways, because when you come in on an IFR or anything, you want to know you're above or below, but there has to be a margin of error below the glide slope that they're giving you. so that if you are low, you're not gonna hit anything.
So if you're landing
That's
runway
right.
18, if you're landing runway 18, you're gonna be making use of the PAPI, which is close to the 3/6 end of the runway, is that right?
No,
Closest to the 18.
it's closest to 1/8, but it's only like 500 feet maybe. I don't know how many far down it's
Oh,
before
you
the.
think it's like 500 feet?
Yeah, but I mean,
So this-
it may be a little more, I don't know.
This thing right here, this picture is showing the PAPI that would be lined up, or made
That's right.
arrangements for landing on runway 18. It's
18.
almost at the end of the runway.
Well, it's
And
500
then
feet
there's another
down.
one at the other end.
And there's another one right like it on the other end, on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Well, one's on the right, one's on the, depending on your direction of travel.
Yeah.
But
So
it's on the
this
west
is
side of the
leaving
runway.
for landing on runway 36, right?
And we always ask the question, well, why couldn't they put it between the taxiway and the runway?
Well, we only have 3,000 feet. If you're coming in after the first 500, you have less
No,
Runway
you'd be
to
coming
land
down on the 500 mark, that's the touchdown
on
zone.
the 500 mark.
Because that's why you have the
So you only
markings,
have 2,500 feet to stop in.
but your runway markings have to be beyond, you can't touch down on the numbers,
I understand, okay, all right,
safety.
okay.
And again, I think it's important to note the purpose of identifying these projects isn't to determine the exact location of where everything would go. It's really just providing FAA with the justification for the projects that they would need to fund something like this and really get their blessing that if this was something the airport wishes
So
to
this one is set
pursue.
up for landing on runway 18.
Yeah.
And you're way the hell back here, and you're touching down way back here, but this is
No.
your angle of attack and all that.
Yes, 500
Once-
feet in.
Once you land, once you go past this, you're pretty much at the end of the runway.
You only have 20, well, no, you're going this way. You land down at 500 feet, you only have 2,500 feet.
You've flown into a packy before, haven't you?
Yeah.
It's right side of the runway.
Nashua,
Nashua's has it,
Mhm.
Laconia has them, Sanford does,
I thought they were at the end though, I was wrong, yeah, okay.
because the rent identifier light will, is what is at the end. They are red,
Those are white.
and those are,
So I think, again, in the interest of time and,
Yep.
trying to make sure that there's an understanding of the changes that were made, I will say, we did forward these changes to FAA and Mass DOT, like I said, on the 30th of October, and we received concurrence from Mass DOT. I'm still waiting on concurrence from the FAA. So what we'll do is we'll take a little bit of a pause until we get that concurrence and then move forward with, putting these projects ultimately on the ultimate airport layout plan, the ones that have been selected.
because I think what we were kind of wondering about too was being able to keep some of the grass area open for landing.
Mhm.
And some of the guys, the other guys, Phil, you guys like landing on the grass, or the weeds. But it's,
So 500 feet in on both sides leaves 2,000 grass foot.
which is not bad, but it's, you just don't want to hit them from the backside.
And if you overextend your into.
They don't want us to use grass.
Mm.
That's why I was trying to hitch our bets on the fence, because when, I think that, I don't know, I haven't walked it yet. I want to walk up there, but hunting season right now, it's not a good place to walk.
Put an orange hat on.
I need more than that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Hopefully everyone understands the changes and everyone feels comfortable. I guess just waiting for FAA's blessing. And of course, like I said before, if you take this home and you realize that you have a question about it,
Yeah.
feel free to give me a call. I know we kind of went through it quickly today, but
I want to make sure that, everybody understands what's going to happen when they, if they put it in. And I think we got some latitude with where that fence is going on
You do.
the other side, because
Again, none of this has been designed, it's just,
All
it's just conceptual,
Right.
so.
Oh, you think maybe those could go out further?
Clear some trees and put
Yeah.
some brush, flatten it out,
Put them out
plant
there.
some grass, make it pretty. Good.
Okay. So I guess I'll just keep things moving along if that's okay.
Yep.
Project number 3, wildlife hazard site visit, there's no update since last month.
I have a gentleman that is out here several times a week with binoculars, looking at birds and all that sort of stuff. So I might show it to him after we get it.
What's his favorite?
Huh?
What's his favorite when it comes to these birds?
He looks at all of them, he can identify them all. I guess the ones that were over in the field here were mud daubers, which isn't endangered. Everybody's got them.
So the last item on the agenda on page 4 is the airport's fiscal year 2025 project. I know we've talked for the last few meetings about the need for an environmental assessment, potentially Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act component, as well as an obstruction analysis report. So just a little bit of updated information since last time. I know we were talking about FAA funding 95% of AIP projects and 90% of VIL projects, but FAA actually confirmed in a recent CIP meeting, recent scoping meeting for another airport that they'll actually be covering 95% of both AIP and VIL for projects in fiscal year 2025, and then Mass DOT would contribute 2.5%, so the airport's share for any project, instead of the usual 5%, would be 2.5% in this funding year. So that was some really good news on FAA's side of things. So really what we're waiting on at this point is a decision or confirmation from the commission that the local share for the project will be available, and if so, I know FAA is really looking to schedule scoping meetings for these projects in the month of November. They've held a lot in October, and they're looking to start, buttoning up all their scoping meetings for the year. They sent out another request recently,
Yes,
asking for those schedules. And so really just trying to get a sense from the commission if you wish to move forward in fiscal year 2025 with the environmental assessment,
An obstruction analysis.
and obstruction analysis for next year. Just so we can know, we'll know which direction to move in, as far as whether we should schedule that scoping meeting or what needs to happen.
That's 73, 75, it's 2 point.
Yeah, 2.5, yep. And Jackie, correct me if I'm wrong, that was our estimate without even having a scoping meeting.
That's
So
correct.
we think that was on the higher side, if you remember from, it might have been the August meeting, September meeting,
Something like
where we talked about that and we gave you guys kind of like the high scenario, depending on, because I personally don't think the NEPA component of this is gonna be required. I don't think there's any thresholds that are being tripped that require the MEPA, which would drive the cost of that 295 down, so.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind.
Okay, I can ask the mayor about that. We've been giving, like I mentioned, the fuel turnovers every month, and we've been selling a lot of fuel, so each month we're turning over at least $3,600
That's awesome.
in fuel receipts. But the city pays for the fuel up front, and we're sort of paying them back.
Sure.
So I was going to ask if we could maybe, keep a couple of those so we have that available. I don't know how that would go, but we could ask.
So
We should ask.
yeah, I mean, and the biggest thing, just so that you have, and I know Jackie has offered, and we've offered to come out and meet with the mayor, similar to what we did for the runway project several years ago. If that would help you all
I
sort of
think it
convey that message,
Want to,
we're happy to do that.
That might be a good idea.
Because part of the explanation is the FAA and Mass DOT are not gonna fund any additional projects here until you go through that environmental assessment. They literally can't.
that.
You need to comply with MEPA, or NEPA rather,
Okay.
before you can spend federal dollars on some of these projects. The other important piece is the obstruction analysis. They're going to be interested, the FAA is going to be interested in that next project being a safety project and clearing your approaches, getting the trees out of the approaches, but we can't do that. We can't guide you guys on where these trees are because we don't know where they are without having that obstruction analysis completed.
Yep.
So they kind of go hand in hand, they're important. In order
Does
for
the airport
to move
survey
forward.
cover that?
It does not.
Does not.
Unfortunately, it does not, no. Does not.
Okay.
Right.
But just to Jackie's point, to reiterate, the FAA is looking to schedule these final scoping meetings before the end of this month. There's a holiday at the end of this month as well, so if there's a meeting and you'd like our attendance with the mayor, sooner rather than later would be in everyone's best interest.
Okay, I'll look into it and get back to you.
Okay?
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments for Gail? All right, if you could just make sure, Jim, that the other commissioners are provided with copy of
Yes.
the changes and that they're aware that, you know, any questions, you know, should be submitted to me in advance of the next meeting, because I'll be looking to go over schedule of improvements and draft airport layout plan with all of you. So hopefully, you know, we can kind of move things forward, button this up, and then, you know, get this project finalized. I think so.
Here, let me put mine back into the box. I know where to find Jackie. Yeah, another copy.
That'll cover it a little bit. Okay, good.
Thank you.
And we will- So we're ready for the manager's report?
Okay, the one-ton and the loader now have had oil changes, which is good. We'll get the snow plows on next, not that we're gonna have any snow, but we're gonna be ready for it. So that's the equipment. The alarm company quote, which Rob sent to me, is $600 for the work and material and labor. Okay, $600 up front and $264 annually for central alarm monitoring. And so we have to decide if we want to go forward with that alarm company. I sent a letter to Greenwood Alarm because they are not doing it anymore, asking them to unlock the code to make it easier for us to go with someone else. I have not heard back from them yet. We do have to have the phone line put back, and I've asked Verizon to do that, and I've not heard back from them yet. Let's see. Along with that, the insurance policy I've reviewed, and it's like an umbrella policy for the airport. We're not required to have any type of burglar or fire alarm to, you know, get a better rate on our insurance costs. So we're not required to do it. The reason we would do it is really for fire only, fire and smoke, I think. So the insurance policy, we pay about $11,000 a year for this policy. It's $1 million each occurrence. I've looked it over. The only thing I didn't like is that it said for fire was only $50,000 for occurrence of each fire, which seemed a little low to me. Although they do also pay for bodily injury and
That $50,000 limit is for what?
for fire damage. Limit any one fire seems pretty low to me. Yeah.
And yet it's $1 million policy, it's
Yeah,
described as
yeah, it's
being-
$1 million policy, but the fire damage is only $50,000. But they do pay for, you know, injury and all that, you know, from operations that happen at the airport and,
What about aircraft? Are they covered by this
They-
$1 million?
We are covered for non-airport owned aircraft that happens to sue the airport, and the insurance company will pay, but they might take those people to court or try to pay less or whatever.
Okay.
They would do their own due diligence. If someone had an accident on the property and it was within the operations, they would pay, but they would probably sue,
There's,
countersue.
well, there's
So-
a process for doing that.
Yeah, so,
It's
anyway,
standard.
the only thing I noticed is that the fire, only 50,000, I would probably go up a little with that maybe. And it's $11,000 a year, it's not a cheap policy, but it's $1 million each occurrence.
For business, that's probably not that bad, but.
Malpractice is $1 million. Each occurrence limit is $1 million.
Each
So that's
occurrence,
your,
Fire damage limit, any one fire. I don't get that.
50,000 for a fire. It doesn't say what kind of fire, I believe they mean the building.
So it's basically insuring you against personal injury and
Yeah.
malpractice and
Right. Based on,
suits, but
yeah, operations within the airport.
if you louse up my hangar, I'm only gonna get $50,000.
Yeah.
Maybe.
no, you're not covered by that because you're not a
Lawsuits.
municipally owned building, you have your own policy.
Okay, you're.
Yeah, you have your own policy.
Then we'll get into the suit. So-
And they don't pay for terrorism, acts of terrorism. That's extra, that would be extra.
This has been in existence for some time, you're just.
Yeah.
Can I, if you could make me a copy of that, please?
Yeah, so I thought I would call them and just have a chat and see if we're covered. It
Well,
seems a little,
it sounds like it's a typical policy that's $1 million, you
it's
know, everybody
typical.
with an aircraft's got $1 million smooth. And it usually covers the aircraft wherever it is,
Yeah.
hangared or not, or whatever.
Right, this
Yeah,
covers
But
airport
this covers
operations.
just, actually, that would be probably this office and the building.
Yeah.
And lawsuits against us,
Well, that's liability, yeah.
and,
But I would like, you know, the quote that they gave you and what you need for information to get into the system.
Okay.
But,
so that's the insurance policy, and, what else? Fire extinguisher annual check, we're a little late with that this year, they're coming on Friday to, check all the fire extinguishers around. We have one here, we have two in that building, we have one at the fuel tank, we don't have any, I don't believe we have one way down. I don't think we do.
no, I never seen one down there, I
Okay.
don't think there is,
Yeah, I don't think so. So they're coming on Friday to check that, and that's it.
Fire department. Who's coming?
no, it's not the fire department, it's the, fire protect.
Okay.
They do the extinguisher thing, and they have to check them, make sure they've got pressure and that they're still powered. And they're charged and whatever, he swaps them out and fixes them. I've done it over the last few years. Anything on the guard system?
Oh, here it is, right here. Yeah, no, I don't have that. North Central Fire Protection of East Templeton.
Yeah, that's the old
Does it?
fire protect.
Fire protect, they're right up here in the center of town,
They're-
across
they-
from the bank or something.
They did it last year, the year before.
Get it done every year. That it?
Yes.
Okay. And, I guess we can motion to,
Motion to adjourn?
yes,
Okay.
okay? Not that it makes any difference because we're not quorum, but. Okay.
Thank you.
Let us,
you.
let us know if you do get a meeting set up with them, let us know if you want us to come out and, set it up stuff sometimes is a little more,